Hello, and welcome to the TrailManners podcast. I'm your host, Eric Manning, coming to you from the beautiful trails in Ogden, Utah, but connecting you to wherever trail, ultra, and mountain running takes us. We'll bring trail running to life with amazing athletes, discuss the latest topics, epic journeys, and get you stoked for your next trail adventure. We're sharing the moments that make life special, because even a rough day on the trail beats a good day indoors, and nothing beats time spent with good friends and great stories. Catch us here weekly for your dose of dirt, vert, and good vibes. So now it's time to top off your water, grab some cheese curds, and join us for this week's podcast, where we take you deep into the heart of our sport. It's go time. Hello and welcome to episode number 330 of the TrailManners podcast. The TrailManners podcast is produced for your enjoyment, and show notes can be found at TrailManners.com. Come back often, and please feel free to add the podcast to your RSS feed or iTunes. You can also follow us on Twitter, or X, Instagram, and Facebook at TrailManners. And don't forget to subscribe, review, and rate us on iTunes. TrailManners would really appreciate any donation via our website at TrailManners.com. And please remember to share us with your friends. All links are in the show notes. Now let's get after it. All right, welcome back to another edition of the TrailManners podcast. I am your host, Eric Manning. Launch date here is 2/6/2024, just a few days after the Groundhog Day, which is an early spring, which we've already started here in Utah. Had January, and now we're headed back into February. Got a great guest on. We've been off for a couple weeks, just recuperating and replanning or planning or rescheduling or getting ready for more podcasts. How's that? I'm going to start with the beer of the week. The beer of the week, surprisingly, and I'm going to say that because the guest that I'm going to introduce here in a moment brought the beer of the week in, and it is from Roha Brewing Company, the Big Green Couch. Now, I love the name, and I would actually love a Big Green Couch. This is their double dry hopped double IPA, 8%. I really like this thing. Like, I've had it just a couple times before. It says it pairs with backpacks, sunset hikes, and aimless adventures. So come on, how does that not go with the podcast? We could substitute maybe backpacks for hydration packs, sunset hikes for sunset runs. You got what I'm saying. But this is a great beer. Super excited. Let's see. It's the brewer's secret. It says Simcoe hop additions bring a bright citrus aroma. Super tasty. Recommended. Love it. So thank you so much to our guest who brought not just an IPA, but three packs of coveted cheese curds. So thank you so much to our guest sitting across from me, Heidi Waddoups. You're on the first time on the show.
First time, yeah. Thanks for having me.
And am I right? Is this the first time you've been on a podcast?
Yes.
So this is new territory.
This is new territory. It's a little intimidating, but exciting.
Well, don't be intimidated. We take things easy here. You've already started off. I mean, if we ended the show right now, this would be a huge success for me, just because I've got a really tasty IPA and 3 packs of cheese curds.
Awesome.
So thanks for bringing those.
Absolutely.
And we also got a breakout for the first time ever, TrailManners podcast coasters.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
That is pretty fancy. I feel branded now.
Very official.
Well, yeah. Thanks for being on. You got a great voice. I can hear you in the thing. So far as that goes, everybody gets nervous, especially if they've never been on a podcast, but it's going to be fantastic. So
yeah, that's good.
I'm super excited. Thanks for taking the time to come in. Again, it's February. Obviously, you live here in our area, but what are your thoughts on this weather?
I like the snow. I'm one of those
snow people
that live in Utah. Yeah. So when we're getting rain in January and February, I'm wishing it was snow.
Yeah.
So the early spring, it is good for trail running. So, there's always good and bad, but yeah.
See, and I look at it and we need this, always need the snow. Just need it anyway. Whether you like it or not, you need it. But I also say I'll be selfish and take advantage of what Mother Nature's given me.
Yes.
And so if I can run on dirt, which we're doing right now in a lot of places right now, we'll do that. But you are a a winter person.
Yeah.
A lot too, right?
Yeah.
You guys ski a lot.
We ski a lot. I do like all the seasons, though.
Yeah.
I think that's a big perk of living in Utah,
Oh,
too.
that's
Is all the
best.
seasons. Yeah, there's something good in each one. So
Yeah. People tell me all the time, oh, you used to live here and live there. And I'm like, but Utah's, you literally get all four.
Yeah.
And every year it changes how long each one is. Some are longer than others.
Yes.
But I love all four seasons.
Yeah. I feel like at the end of each one, I'm getting ready for the next one. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, yeah, bring it on. I'm ready.
Well, there's so much to do,
Yep.
right? So anyway, we got you on the podcast. You have a very impressive running resume, which we'll get into. But I mean, you do other things, and we'll kind of get into that as well. But there's a couple things I do want to talk about and focus on. So, a little bit of your background. Just I'm going to throw out some races you've done: River of No Return, 108K, Bighorn, 100, Bear 100, Run Rabbit Run 100. Those 3 100s, Bighorn, Bear, Run Rabbit, just those 3 I named right there. You've all finished under 30 hours. Which in itself is super impressive. 27:15 at Bighorn, 4th place female. That's pretty stout. I'm sorry. This is the part that makes people uncomfortable. Is I like to talk them up because this is impressive. River No Return, 108K, same thing. 4th female. Bear 120. What was that? 26:28. Yeah, 26:28. My eyes are bad. 5th female. But you've done El Vaquero, one of my all-time favorite races. You've got a pretty impressive resume.
Thank you.
And your most recent one was last September. I forget we're in 2024 sometimes, so I say September. But last September, 2023, Run Rabbit Run. And you ran in the hair division.
Yeah.
That's impressive in itself.
That was super intimidating.
Yeah.
And that wasn't always the intention when I was signing up for Run Rabbit Run. It was something I had looked at. But before I signed up, I looked at it again. I thought, no, that's not me. I'll sign up as a tortoise. And I sent a text to Seth, like just a screenshot of, my order confirmation. And he's like, you signed up as a hare, right? And I was like, no. And I second guessed everything again, and I looked back through it, and he's like, you could totally do it under 30 hours. There's different requirements for the hares. You start later.
Okay.
So tortoises start at 9, hares start at noon. And you do have a 30-hour cutoff where tortoises have a 36-hour cutoff. You also cannot use a pacer at all as a hare. And so that was super intimidating for me. I'd never done 100, through the night without a pacer. And it used to be you also couldn't use poles as a hare, but they've changed that rule. They just changed that this year. But there were just a few things that it was really intimidating looking at. So Seth made me go back and look at everything and really kind of pumped me up. And so I sent a quick email and I was like, hey, can I switch it to a hare? And they were like, absolutely, like, wow. Good on you. And so then I was in as a hare, and it was, I don't know, it was scary for me, but I say it's good to do things that scare you a little bit. It, pushes you out of your comfort zone and helps you figure out what you're capable of. And so, yeah.
So when you say that, because there are some different, like you said, a 30-hour cutoff, they did allow poles, no pacers. Did anything change leading up to the race? Did you train any differently at all? Did you, I don't want to say second guess yourself, but was there a little bit more planning, you think, going into that where it's a little new, I guess, and some of that?
Yeah, definitely. I wanted to feel very prepared going into it. And so, I'd be out on trail runs with friends and I would tell them, I'm like really scared about this. And of course they're all like, oh, you'll be fine. And
that's what friends are for.
That's what friends are for. But yeah, I felt like maybe I did a ton of climbing and I was just really trying to be super prepared for it. Also just the planning. I usually don't run with music or anything like that. But I thought, yeah, maybe through the night, where I don't have a pacer or somebody to talk to, maybe I'll want to listen to music, something to keep me awake and in it. And so I, kind of got a playlist together and experimented one trail run with headphones just to see how it would feel, because I usually don't ever run with any music or anything. But so I prepared a little bit different that way. And then it's funny, you sign up for the race, you think you have all this time to prepare, and then it comes pretty quick and you just get in what you get in. But
deal with what you got.
Yep.
So I want to put you on the spot a little bit.
Okay.
So Bighorn, Bear, Run Rabbit Run. Toughest of the three.
Oh, that's a good question. Course-wise, I'm going to say Bighorn.
Are you?
Yeah. Run Rabbit Run, I found that to be a lot more runnable than I thought it was going to be going into it. I thought it was more, looking at like their race description, the elevation profile and stuff, I thought there was more climbing than there would be. A lot of the uphills are actually fairly runnable. I thought it was more runnable on Run Rabbit Run than I thought. I probably would have trained a little bit differently because I did a ton of vert training for it. But and just the conditions, Bighorn are tricky.
You did Bighorn, when was that? In 2022, right? What was the weather like? Because it's like super sloppy, muddy or not, or was your year decent?
So usually they say you either get a muddy year at Bighorn or a hot year at Bighorn. And they said our year, we got both.
Oh, lovely.
So that was really cool. Yeah. It was super hot that day. So, starting out, it was...
Because they start at 11 or something.
It's a later start too. Yep, in the afternoon. So I was already... You don't get get a few miles done while it's cool. I was already... And
you start off with a pretty decent little couple climbing.
Yeah.
I mean, you go where the start is, you have like a trail that's runnable if you can get away from the pack, but then there's a good hump climb, right?
It's a good climb, and it kind of caught me off guard a little bit. Yeah. I think I went out a little too hot on that one, and just it being hot, and I maybe overdid it a little bit at the first. It surprised me because all I knew was Bear. That was my only 100-mile experience before that one. And so I just naively thought they would feel somewhat similar. Bear starts off with a decent climb too. And
but it's at like 6 a.m.
Yeah, but it's still dark outside. And so that climb really kind of kicked my butt right off the bat. And I was not feeling good. And I wasn't even till like the first aid station, and I was not feeling good. So that one's hard. I think the terrain is hard toward, the turnaround. It's an out and back. Bighorn's an out and back. And toward where you turn around to come back, the trail is typically quite muddy. Even on a dry year, I think it's pretty muddy. And so conditions at that race are hard. I think it also has a decent amount of climbing. And maybe the out and back thing is tricky for people too. You know what you've just been through. And so to make yourself...
what's
leave Jaws, what you just went through, and it was kind of awful. It was hard, and so to make yourself go back out, I think that's a tricky part.
What's Run Rabbit Run? Is it a loop course?
So Run Rabbit Run is also an out and back, but it's not all common trail. So on your way out, there's one section that's just an out and back, and you only do that on the way out. You don't do that section coming back, and then you hit all of the same aid stations, but like on your way out, you'll kind of curve around to one side and do different trail. And on the way back, you would curve around the other side. So there's some common trail. So it is an out and back. And then at the end where you would turn around to come back, you do a loop there back to the same aid station too. So it's kind of an out and back, but not... The whole thing isn't the same trail.
It's like Bighorn is a legit out and back.
Yes.
And then you got the Bear, which is point to point. So they are kind of different. But, I mean, conditions aside, no conditions involved. What would you think? And I like how you said that. Some people are different, whether it's an out and back, point to point, knowing what's ahead, not knowing what's ahead. Some people like that, or loops. Course overall, though, would you say Bighorn would be a tougher course?
Yeah, I think Bighorn, for me, I guess it depends on your strengths. For me, Bighorn was tough. It has pretty long, sustained climbs and descents, where something like Bear, it has a lot of climbing too, but it's kind of broken up. You go up, you hike up and then you jog down to an aid station, and then you leave the aid station, you hike up again, and then you jog down to another one. And it's kind of broken up with the climbing a little in shorter sections, I think. Bighorn, you feel like in some of those sections, you're just climbing
Forever.
and climbing and climbing. Yeah.
Yeah, I dropped at mile 50 at Bighorn, and it was a hot year.
Okay.
Like a really hot year. And again, I'd never been on the course. So I started way too aggressive for me and not drinking as much because, it was early in the race.
Yeah. You feel
I was
good.
dead.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And then as we got further into the race, they ran out of ice. They ran out of a lot of food. And I remember hearing was, the aid stations are loaded with food. And I don't blame the race. I mean, you should pack your own to be prepared, which I had some, but nothing sounded good. So I hit the 50-mile mark. I'm like, I'm going to go home.
I'm good. Yeah.
But now that I look back, I should have suffered the last 50 because the ride out of there takes forever.
That is one thing about Bighorn is there's not an easy drop. I don't think anywhere. And so that is a good motivator to just.
What if you knew what you knew? That's all I can remember. But,
yeah.
But yeah, it is a tough, but it's a beautiful course.
It is beautiful. And
Sheridan, Wyoming is spectacular.
It is a special place.
Yeah. And
that's a cool thing about it out and back too, is you maybe get to see most of the course or all of the course in the daylight, which that's kind of cool too. And also sometimes, even though it's the same trail coming back, it feels totally different.
Well, and it's like the race I mentioned earlier, which is my favorite course, is El Vaquero Loco, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like it's an out and back,
Yep.
but it looks different both directions.
Oh,
I mean,
for
the
sure.
views are different. I remember one of the first times I ran it, I'm like, oh, there's some waterfalls. I didn't see them on the way out, but it's coming back I did. And just the views are different. And so I don't mind an out and back. Sometimes for me, I like knowing what's coming, so I can either A, cry, or B, maybe get some more calories in me if I know a climb's coming up.
Yeah.
The loop courses, like multiple loops on a course, are my least favorite, and I try not to ever run those the rest of my life. That's how much I like those. So, I like where it depends on the race. But River No Return is 108K is a very tough course.
It's a tough course.
For not 100-miler. For that one's pretty brutal. That place too.
Yeah. It is a tough course. There's a decent amount of climbing. You get up pretty high elevation in a few places also. But I really enjoyed that course too. It is beautiful, and I loved all the different sections. To me, it was really cool. Each section felt totally different. And I really enjoyed that course. There's also some really great runnable stuff if you like that, whatever plays to people's strengths. There's some great climbing, but also some good runnable stuff. And I really enjoyed that course. And you get up, a couple of those climbs, you're above tree line. It looks totally different. And then another section, you're kind of in this marshy, like you're crossing the stream like 12 times back and forth. I mean, it's just a total mixed bag of conditions. And then another part, you're just running through the pine trees. Like it's a really fun course. I really enjoyed that race. It's put on really well, and I had a good time there.
Well, let me get back to Run Rabbit Run, because it's interesting. You've done a lot. We'll get into some more stuff here in just a minute. But now that you've done a race like that with, no pacers, some of the different rules, there is, even though the cutoff is 30 hours, you finished under that, I imagine that adds a whole different element as well, because your cutoff is shorter, right? So you didn't have a 36-hour, so it's like, okay, I get my mindset's different here. I don't want to be close to a cutoff because they cut off at aid stations before that. Overall, how did you feel about that race with those things compared to like a bear or a bighorn?
Yeah, that was actually a huge difference in how the race felt to me. And I don't know that I was prepared for that going into it. I think I thought I was, I had told my friends, I signed up as a hare, but I might be like the DFL hare. And I was like, I'm totally fine with that. Like, It's still cool. Like
still under 30.
It's still under 30. I'm showing up on the line with these incredible athletes, and I get to be there. And that's a really cool thing. But so, right out of the gate, I was almost the DFL hare, like right off the bat. It starts up a super steep climb, but I've done 100 miles and I don't want to go out too hot. And so I was just, doing my thing. And there was another gal back with me, and she was just kind of like, wow, here we are. at the very back of the pack, you know, and it's like, it's okay. And we talked for a little bit and I just said, sure, like we signed up as hares, but we're going to be smart like tortoises. We're just going to pace well and we're going to do this thing. And, but it was a little bit stressful. So, you know, the tortoises had started at 9 a.m., I think, and we started 12. So they were hours ahead of us already. So truly, we were the very last people in the race. So when we came into that first aid station, I had never had that feeling of these aid station people are just waiting for us to come in here. And it felt really different. It was a little bit stressful. And then coming into almost the turnaround point for the out and back, I came into that aid station and Seth was there and he, you know, usually he's super pumped to see me. He's just lifting me up, giving me all the good vibes and pep talk. And I could tell he still, you know, was very supportive, but I could tell he was just a little bit more serious. He's usually just pretty funny and we're having a good time. And just how serious he was, I was like, oh no, like I am really close to cutoffs. And so he was just like, you know, he asked me how I was doing and I had had a little bit of a rough time out there. I took a wrong turn, got off course just a little bit, just kind of mentally, you know, deflated me a bit and then just wasn't feeling super great. And so I was in a little bit of a lull. And so I got a little bit emotional as he's asking me how I'm doing. And then he was just like, okay, you know, from that aid station, I had to do a loop and then come back to that same aid station. He's like, on paper, you've got it taking you this long, but you've got to be back here. And he gave me like a time. You got to be back here at this time. And I was just thinking like, okay, you know, sure. Like, I feel like crap, but I'm going to try.
Thanks, coach.
Thanks, coach. Yeah. So he's like, we're going to come into this aid station. We're going to get you food and then we're going to get you out. And he was just like all business, like telling me what was going to happen. And he's like, you're just, and he always has the great things to say to motivate me. And he said, you're going to move with a purpose. And so I got to the aid station. I got these hash browns that were so good. They were the best hash browns I've had in my life. So I'm like, leave the aid station. I've got this cup and like fork in my hash browns and it's a little bit of climb out of there. So I'm hiking. And I did, like, I just kept that in my head, move with a purpose. And I was able to make up quite a bit of time on that loop. I finally felt a little bit better. And I started catching up to people. I didn't feel quite as alone out there. Tortoises had picked up hares. And so you're hearing conversations out on the trail. And it was just, it felt fun. And I felt like I was moving a lot better. And so I got back to that aid station and he was like, yeah, like super excited for me. And I had made up quite a bit of time. I wasn't pushing cutoffs quite as much, which was a really good boost. But that was different with the hare, starting as a hare, because they have the cutoffs built really for everyone. So if you're running as a tortoise and doing that race, they'll warn you, hey, these cutoffs are super generous at the first for tortoises. So if you're pushing cutoffs as a tortoise right off the bat, you're probably going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
And then, you know, the later you get into the race, those cutoffs would start coming a lot earlier because they have like such a wide range for the cutoffs. But pushing cutoffs, feeling like I was dead last in the race. I had not had that experience before. And it was kind of tough mentally. I think it just wore on me a little bit. I felt a little bit stressed during the race. And
that adds to a little bit of everything because it is, I mean, you get into these big, long races. I mean, there's that physical component that you're training for, but that mental side is, to me, almost the toughest one because there's more that plays into that, in my opinion, right? Because you've got, you know, how you're feeling, what you're eating, you know, the cutoffs, you know, you get in your head a lot, whether it's the temperature, or am I eating enough? Am I drinking enough? Is it the trail conditions? Are people passing me? Am I passing people? I mean, there's just so many things that can get in your head mentally. Yep. So I think sometimes, you know, you talk about, now when you look back on that serious Seth, we'll call him, I mean, that had to be helpful though, too. Like you had somebody there that's just kind of like, okay, here's what we got to do, right? Sure. Because sometimes when you are stressed or a little your focus maybe is off a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of panic mode.
Yeah.
So to have that calming presence, even though, maybe the poker face wasn't on, so you felt like, oh my gosh, I'm behind, was probably helpful, right? Okay, here's the game plan. Boom, boom, just go do your thing.
Yeah. Super, super helpful. Yeah. I think that's so huge. It's one of the biggest parts of ultra running that I love is having your support crew. And yeah, when you've been out there running for hours and hours and maybe you're a little depleted on calories, energy, all of that, you're not always thinking super clearly. And so to have somebody that knows what you need and is able to communicate that clearly to you, it's really helpful.
Well, and so I just pulled up just for fun because I hadn't looked yet, but like on the 100-mile hares for 2023, there were 102 starters.
Mm-hmm.
41 DNFs, almost 50% of the field.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very close. I'm not going to do the math because I don't
close.
like math.
Yeah.
But there were 51 finishers. So literally, even a bad, like you say, I was near the end and I was stressed, but there were 41 hares. So we're not talking, again, being in that division, probably some more, I don't know the best way to put it, a little more experienced, fast, whatever you want to look at. So still, that's pretty impressive. Over almost half the field DNF'd, you still finished under 30 hours.
Yeah.
With all of what you're just mentioning, that's got to feel good too, though, right?
It does feel good. Yeah. It's easy, I think, to beat yourself up over little things, and I do think I felt a little bit more defeated right after that race. Like Seth asked me if I would sign up and do it again as a hare, and at first I was.
How long did he wait before asking that?
It was only a day.
See, that's wrong, Seth.
So that was a little too fresh.
48 hours, man. Come on.
Like you gotta wait just a little bit.
What did you tell him?
I told him no. Then I was just like, no way.
Yeah.
Because I think it felt really stressful to me, and I had a hard race and so it beat me up, I think, physically and mentally. But now looking back, I am able to see those things like, you know what? Yeah, I did. I went for it. I signed up as a hare. I was brave and did that. And I did. I finished under 30 hours. I still did the thing. Like, that's what I went out there to do. And going into, I did feel like, yeah, there's a good chance I could be the very last of the hare finishers. And I wasn't. It was close, but I wasn't. And I still did it. And so I am proud of that. And
Well, I think now, too, if you were to do it again, just even one time through, just the added experience, right? Not just of the course, but the mental side. Okay, I can run without a pacer. I've done it before, right? 30-hour cutoff. I've done it before. So I think that adds the element that might have been, or what you're saying could have been a difficult part of the race, right? Just the unknown and the mental side of things. So you've done it now. Mm-hmm. So again, and now knowing the course, you could maybe train differently. So I think the outcome could be much different, right? Yeah. When you think about it, so like you said, you've thought through it. Can you see places where if you did it again, you'd make changes?
Yeah, for sure. I would train differently. I would say it is a runner's race, run, rabbit, run. There is a lot of running to be had on that course. So I spent a lot of time hiking and climbing, and I would definitely change my training for that. I also, it gets up above 10,000 pretty quick, that very first climb, and it starts out high. You're already, I think, just below like 7,000 at the start. And then right out of the gate, you climb up to Mount Werner, and it's just above 10,000. And you kind of hang out pretty high for a good portion of the course. And I don't think the altitude affected me too much until on my way back and going back to Mount Werner. I was feeling really terrible. In the moment, I didn't really know what it was. But I was just, all of a sudden I was breathing really quickly, even though I wasn't like running, like sprinting, but I was breathing like I was sprinting, just really short of breath. I started like wheezing really loud. At first I thought somebody was talking behind me, and then I realized it was just me breathing. And my extremities started to swell, like my arms were getting really swollen. So looking back now and talking with Seth, he's like, you had HAPE or high altitude pulmonary edema, not high altitude sickness, but it's something you can get from exerting too much at altitude, and it can happen at lower altitudes. And so I think I would prepare a little bit differently with the altitude too. I did try to get out for some good high altitude runs, but also just maybe on that loop where Seth pumped me up, then I maybe went a little too hard there and through a few sections trying to, go a little quicker. I think maybe I overexerted a little bit too much, and then ended up with a little bit of problem with my lungs. And so,
well, that could be like when you're in that moment, like we always talk about, I need to make up time, right? So you find a section that's like, okay, this is runnable, downhill, flat, whatever. I need to make up some time. So maybe you would go a little bit harder than you normally would, could contribute to what you're talking about too, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Well, so it's interesting on the Run Rabbit Run. So we've talked about the hares and the tortoises. So the hares, we had 102 start, 51 and 41. On the tortoise side, 252 finishers. And I think there was, I'm scrolling so fast, there was like 103 DNFs. So much larger race.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
But it just shows you the difference between, what do you call that? The not the tortoise there. I'll come back to that. But yeah, it's the difference in the size of the race between the hares and the tortoises, right? Because there's still a lot of people out on the trail.
It's still a lot of people, but it did feel weird at that start line. It was a small group of people.
Yeah.
And so I was with people till the first aid station and pretty close to the second. And then after that, you're kind of in no man's land for a little while until I started catching up to a few of the tortoises and stuff. But that was a different feel. It was a really small start line,
for 100, like a big race.
Yeah.
And there's a 50 miler as well out there for the Run Rabbit Run and Steamboat. But was the course good though? Liked the course, pretty course, set up well.
Yes, I did like the course. There are some really cool, pretty sections in there.
Okay.
The first climb, it's like at a ski resort.
Yeah.
But once you hit that first aid station, you start on this single track, and it was so good. I loved that section. Just super flowy and really fun. Just kind of got in a good groove there. You go down to the Fish Creek Falls, which is really pretty. It gets kind of technical down at the bottom, but that's fun, and you climb back out of there. And then on your way out, you do I think it's like the Continental Divide Road. It's just a double track road, but there still are pretty views off of that. But then on your way back, you get to go through this one section that's like I don't know, I'm not a mountain biker, like a triple black diamond mountain bike course. So there's sections you'll come to, and it's over all this granite rock. So the trail is marked with like cairns and, white paint to follow the trail. Cause all of a sudden the trail will just stop and there's all these rocks and you'll have to make this big move to climb up. But I really enjoyed that section too. There was a lot of really pretty course. Overall, I really, really did enjoy the course a lot. It's cool.
Because that's what I like to ask guests, especially the races I haven't done, is just like the overall course. Because that's, for me, it's about the experience of being on a course. Because you've run some amazing courses when I look just at your ultra sign up, and there's two that I really want to focus on now. The first one, amazing course I've seen you have done the Nordic Valley 7K.
Oh, yes.
Now I've heard nothing but amazing things about this event.
That trail that day. Do you remember that year?
I do remember that year. Yeah.
It was like it had just snowed.
Yep.
We got feet
all
of
night.
Snow.
Yep.
Yeah.
People running up their waist. That was a race that Joel Hatch and I used to put on for a while, 7K on a ski resort. It was super fun.
That was a great one.
But here's my question I'm going to ask you. So, those that are listening, she keeps bringing Seth up. And if you've heard in the past, we've had Seth Waddoups on the podcast just within the last couple months talking about his running. But there's a race that I want to ask you about that I asked him about that you've run, and I want to get your thoughts on it. The McDonald Forest 50K. How would you describe that race? I mean, you're smiling pretty big right now, so I'm already getting good vibes on it. But how would you explain that race?
Oh, it is so fun.
Yeah.
It is beautiful. It was one of those races where you should probably be watching your feet and watching where you're going, but you just can't take your eyes off the scenery. It's just green, beautiful Oregon forest. So fun. I loved that race.
Because I've been wanting to do that race for so long. And but I hadn't talked to people that have done it much at all, almost, until Seth came on. And man, when he started talking about it, you could see his face, and I'm like, that's my kind of course.
It is so good. I would definitely recommend it. So, and correction. So Seth was talking about it, and we had ran that race with a few friends. We went out there, and after the race, it was really cool. On each section, something cool that race did, before you would get to a new section of trail, they had a sign out, and it would say, how many miles to the next section, and then also said what that section of trail was called, which was cool. So then when we all got to the finish line, we were like, oh, what about this section? So Seth called it Fairyland.
Yeah.
That's at Bryce. He was confused.
I figured.
So the section of trail that he was thinking of is playground. And that really was it just felt like we're kids at a playground. It was so fun, just smooth, flowy, rolly, and then the scenery is just gorgeous. I had a blast at that race.
Well, I'm keeping my eye on it. It's May 4th.
Mm-hmm. It's always like Mother's Day weekend.
Which is great because I'm not a mom.
Yeah. So
it works out great.
Excellent.
But May 4th, it's in Corvallis. It is on I keep watching the registry. They cap it at 300. Mm-hmm. Right now, as to date, there's 129. So I'm watching it closely. So if it was like a 298 right this second, I'd register. I would just do it, yes. Right? But yeah, that's one I'm so close to doing. Just driving up for the weekend, hitting the race. But there's also, it's funny, on May 5th, in Sisters, there's a race. There's a 50K and a half marathon. Oh. Now again, I'm not a fit dude, right? But I thought, man, it'd be kind of fun because I love Sisters area. Yeah, it'd be so fun to drive up, run the McDonald 50K on May 4th, and just come home and run a half marathon before I can. You know what I mean? It's kind of fun, right?
Yeah, so, I like that.
Anyway, that's still on the list. But I wanted to hear more about McDonald Forest Race because there's so many in the Northwest that appeal to me. But that's definitely one, and a lot. It appeals to me too, is because I hear a lot. It's kind of that. And we'll say the words, I'm sorry. It's like that old school, mom and pop, really cool.
Yes.
To me, what trail running used to be when I started. And so that's what really appeals to me on that one.
Yeah. The vibe of that race is...
It's like El Vaquero-ish, those types of things. Those are still my favorite type. Yep. Not that I don't like others, but there's just something about those other special races, with a little bit of history, a little bit of... keeping it small. I mean, this one's been around since 1996, so it's been around for a while as well. So there's another check mark potential. Talking to you. So
I'm saying just sign up.
Sign up.
Just do it.
I can't do that.
And the half marathon.
Yeah,
like a great plan.
It sounds fun in theory, but I'm like that McDonald Force will probably beat me up pretty hard. And then I'm going to drive, so that's good for you right after a race.
Yeah, you feel really.
Yeah, and then the Sisters race that I'm looking at, they say the half marathon's like really, really runnable, and I'm like, oh crap, like I don't want to do that.
Yeah, like you just need to go for a nice hike after running hard at the max.
Because if people are doing the half, they're probably running it, like training for a half marathon. Then some, I show up with like, I'm just wanting to kind of walk this thing, man. Come on, it's just a loosener. But yeah, I got grand plans, but they rarely come to pass. But
that one you should make happen.
Okay, I'll think about it. Well, the other thing, so let me ask you something. You've done an Ironman as well.
I have,
correct?
Yeah.
You've done Coeur d'Alene, is that the one?
I did Coeur d'Alene.
And that was only a few years ago.
Yes.
Okay.
So I had originally signed up for St. George Ironman because I figured just logistically that's easy for me. It's in Utah. And they were only doing the full Ironman in St. George they just started it. I think they were doing a 3-year rotation. I had signed up for it. Then COVID happened and threw a wrench into all the plans. So they canceled that one. They tried to postpone it. I trained like 3 times for this Ironman.
3 hard cycles.
3 hard. And by the time, and I get it, like you don't want to cancel a race until you absolutely have to. So basically I'd be almost to taper time and then they would cancel the race. So, honestly, I'm super glad it worked out like it did. They had to keep canceling St. George, and then they gave us a few options to sign up for, and Coeur d'Alene was one of them. And just looking at it, I was like, okay, because I wanted a tough one. Like Ironman, St. George Ironman, the run is hard. It's pretty hilly as well as the bike. And so Coeur d'Alene is also famously a tough bike course. It's got a lot of elevation gain. I think they say, I'm trying to remember now. I think it's like 7,000 feet on the bike climbing, which is decent for an Ironman. So, but just looking at Coeur d'Alene, it looks like a super cool place.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, let's just go for it. We'll go to Coeur d'Alene. And I'm really glad it worked out that way because Coeur d'Alene, I would say, is my kind of Ironman. It's more pine trees and you swim in the lake. And when I finally got there, and because it had taken me, like three cycles of training, I was so just grateful to be there.
Yeah.
It ended up being a really cool, special day. Yeah.
So it is like you said, it's your kind of thing. So what's the I'm gonna say difference. That's probably the wrong word, but what's the vibes like between like an Ironman, right? And then like Run Rabbit or McDonald Forest. You know what I mean? Like the trail run ultra side versus like the full on Ironman. I mean, what's the vibes like?
It's funny because there definitely are differences.
Yeah.
I think you get those hardcore serious people at an Ironman that have all the gear, all the spandex, and they're super serious. Even just sometimes I'll sign up and do a road marathon or something. And we start out and like no one's talking and I'm like, everyone's just breathing. And I'm like, wow, we are serious today. Okay. But yeah, you show up at McDonald Forest and you're just chatting with everybody on the trail. I feel like it's just more chill, relaxed. People are maybe a little less serious. I don't know. Maybe they just don't take themselves as serious. You're just out there to have a good time and have the experience be what it is. I mean, I'm not saying this is all very generalized.
Sure.
And people are different in all different areas. But overall, I would say sometimes people are like really hardcore serious with all the gear and that kind of thing with an Ironman versus a trail race. I think people show up and just have what they have and they're just there to have a good time.
Well, so I've had this discussion because obviously the easy correlation on all the podcasts we've done is like we get a lot of road runners, road racing coming over to the trail side mainly. Yeah. That's like a big transition, right? And so it's fun talking to those types of folks and they're like, man, trail running is so different. So much more relaxed, not as stressful. Mm-hmm. People are more serious. And some of the questions we talk about, well, is it prize money that makes it stressful, sponsors that make it stressful? And they're like, yes, but there's only a few people that are really doing that. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like when you step up to a marathon, there's a very small group of people that think they're going to podium.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like, so the money's not really the thing. I think it's just there's like differences in training, the seriousness of, splits and, pace and everything else where, in a trail run, you want some of those things for sure, but you can't dictate them as easy, because like, hey, I got to keep my pace under 8 minutes. Well, now you got a 2,000 foot climb. That ain't going to happen, buddy. Yep. Yeah. So I think that's interesting because I have talked to a few people that are Ironmans and very similar. So like it's the same thing, only there's a very small percentage that are thinking they're going to win. Yeah. But you also have people that, would be considered like me, a middle of the packer that show up with, a $15,000 bike, Yeah. And I'm like, oh, okay, I see the difference now. So I think it's just interesting because we see that a lot and you hear that a lot with the ultra running community. You still have that pocket of people that might be more serious than others, but if you name in your head right now, you think of the 3 or 4 of what we would consider like elite ultra runners, you kind of would put them in your head and you're like, oh, they're kind of goofy or they're fun. They don't seem as serious.
Yep.
Right. And I think it's interesting on the Ironman side because it is a lot different.
Yeah, it is a lot different. I think the pace thing, like you were talking about, is a big factor. I started out as a road runner too, and then came to the trail, and I had kind of gotten to that point in my road running where it did start to stress me out a little bit because it is really easy to get caught up in, okay, I got to hit this exact pace. And it's easy to dictate when the terrain is not very variable. But then all of a sudden I got introduced to the trails, and it became about, oh, I'm just going to go up to Lewis Peak today, and it's just going to take however long it's going to take. I'm just going there. I'm not looking at my pace at all. And it came at a really good time for me where I didn't have to beat myself up for going out for a run that I felt like was too slow. So,
well, I think the trail running side, I mean, being involved with it as long as I have on various levels, never been a serious runner, never been a top 25% finisher, anything like that. It's just interesting when you do talk and you see people mentality wise of, oh yeah, I won that race and I finished second at that race. And people, like most of the trail running community, for lack of a better word, I don't want to say they don't care, but it's like most in the trail running community run for themselves. Right? Yeah. Like a challenge for myself. I'm trying to PR my own thing. I'm trying to overcome this. I'm trying to challenge myself to a longer distance. So that's why sometimes I think we've had them on the show and it's been fun too when we brought them back years later is like, yeah, when I first got into trail running, I was too serious, Yep. And then I found like the trail running community was a lot different. So it didn't matter. Right? Because you talk about the pace thing and there's still people out there and, a lot of people that would be like, hey, I'm going to run today at this pace or in a training block. But at the end of the day, where we live especially, and I know this happens all over the world, you run into people
Yep.
right? So you're most of the time going to stop and say hi,
yep.
Because I've done it before where you almost have to say hi because that's just what you do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm not chasing Stravas. So
no.
That's why I love the trail running community. Nobody is caught up in finish times and winning races and anything else. Even the top athletes, don't hang their hat on winning races. It's more the community.
Yep.
Right. And I think that's the difference. The trail running community can see through people with the wrong why.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep. And I think that's what really, when I came to the trails from road running, I absolutely fell in love with the community. And each race I would either go to or race at, just either at the aid stations or just the people that you would talk to while you're out there, it really resonated with me. And I just had such a good time. And every race I do, I'm like, oh, yep, this is why I love it. It's definitely the community. And
I remember, so I came from a very competitive soccer background. And I just remember to myself, when you play sports, when you, whatever level, individual, team, you don't necessarily train to finish second.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're trying to win.
Yeah.
That's the goal. I mean, everybody has fun and participate, but you're trying to win. That's why they keep score or time. And I remember my first ever trail race or ultra. My first ultra was a 50K. It was 4 loops, which was ridiculous in itself. I will never do again. But I literally, my first 50K, Greenland 50K in Colorado. Pretty good chance I could probably find the results. Definitely one of the last 5 people. Wasn't the dead last.
Okay.
Right? Because there was a guy in a wheelchair behind me, but I wasn't last.
Okay.
I was so discouraged.
Oh.
I was so discouraged because I thought, why do I do this? Mm-hmm. I'm literally finishing. This is not a joke. They were I made the cutoff, so it wasn't like I didn't finish, but they were taking the finish line stuff down. There was no pizza left. The only thing I had left to drink was a Coors Light.
Oh.
I drank it anyway.
Okay.
I earned that Coors Light. But there was nothing. And I thought, what am I doing? Yeah. This is embarrassing. That's how I felt. I was so embarrassed. The friend with me was like, I've never been more proud of you than I am today.
Love
and he was a soccer buddy. And I'm like, really? We've done some pretty amazing things.
Cool stuff, yeah.
So then it took me a good 6 months mentally to figure out what trail running was, really was, and what it meant to me. And I thought, okay, here's a place I can come and do what I want to do. I can do it just for fun, while someone else is training their butt off to win, and I could be friends with them. Or I can be training to finish something, a challenge to myself, and someone over here is just there to finish, right? Yeah. But I think but you're there because you loved and you want to be there, and that community changed my life. The trail running community did, because of what we're talking about right now. It's just the approach, what it feels like. You don't know what anybody else is going through in that race. So they finish first or last. That's amazing.
Yep.
Right?
You did it.
You did it. And I think that's the beauty of it. So, it kind of goes back to the comparison, but also when you're talking about And that's why I was smiling when you were talking about your experience in the hair event, right? It's like you were proud of yourself. And I'm like, yeah, why wouldn't you be? I mean, you finished a 100-mile race. First off, you towed the line.
Always a win.
Yeah, you towed the line.
Yeah.
Right? Then you finish the race and it's a 100-miler. So it's the beauty of trail running.
Yes. Yeah.
So what's the difference on the crewing and running side? So you've got a spouse that does the same things, right? So not long after you did a 100-miler without a pacer, Seth turned around and did a 100-miler without a pacer, right? So what's that like? Because you crewed him and he crewed you.
Yeah. What's
the mindset like on both sides of that?
It's a lot more fun to crew. I don't know. I mean, it's stressful both ways, right? Because this is like a side story, but when I was crewing Seth for that race, I went out, I had planned, based on when I thought he would be to the next aid station. And I went out to get in my car. I was still going to be there, I don't know, like hour and a half early than what I thought I needed to be. I had a dead battery. My car would not start. And I'm in a different state. I have no one to help me. And I was just a little bit panicked. So sometimes it can be stressful crewing because you don't want to miss your runner. And you don't want to be the reason, that they have something go wrong on race day. You want to absolutely do everything you can to help them have an amazing day. So there is definitely some pressure that way, but it's so much easier and just more fun to crew. I love crewing. It's so fun hanging out at races. I love showing up early. You get to start just talking to the other people that are there crewing, their loved ones. You hear their cool stories of their why they're out there. And then you get to start seeing kind of the same people, and you're like, okay, like Seth's going to be coming in because I saw this gal and this guy. And also those people, you start cheering for them too. Like, dude, you're doing awesome. Keep it up.
And they remember it too, right? That's the beauty of it.
I mean, because you're out there all day, all night.
And the fun thing sometimes can be where you're helping another runner because maybe they don't have a crew. Yeah. But they're near who you're there for, and you're like, hey, need some help? And they're always just so grateful, right?
Oh, yeah. And when you've done those races, somehow it's really hard to fill up your own water bottles when you've been out there for hours and hours, and you just appreciate something so simple. You appreciate that so much, just a little bit of help. So it's fun. It's really cool to crew Seth, though, and it's fun to have him help me. I know there's a lot of people that they don't have somebody that runs also and really knows what that feels like, but it's cool that we both really what it's like to be out there. And it's been cool because he got to do it all first. Like, he did the first 50-miler. I got to see like, oh, okay. Like, either that's how you do it or that's how you don't do it.
He's your guinea pig.
He's the guinea pig, which was great. We got to like test everything through him. And also the first time I crewed him, I didn't know what I was doing. I had never been to anything like that. And I thought I knew what I was doing. And then eventually we picked up one of his buddies that he's really the one that got us into trail running. And we were waiting at the aid station. And then as Seth came in, he was like all over it. Like, he's up to Seth, like taking his pack off, doing all the things. And I was like, oh,
here's what we're doing.
That's how you're supposed to crew. So I've gotten better at it, hopefully, over the years. And it's cool, like, to be able to crew Seth and to have him crew me. Just like, he knew what to say to me, at that turnaround, to let me know, like, hey, you are pushing cutoffs, but you're okay. And I'm going to help motivate you. And so it's good to have somebody that knows you and knows what you need. Like, do you need me to just, comfort you, or do you need me to help kick your butt a little bit? And
I always want comfort.
Yeah.
I just want comfort. I'm a comfort guy.
Yeah.
Well, now you talk about that part of it that's nice, right? Mm-hmm. Because of that. So let me ask you this next part that may be a little more challenging.
Okay.
You and Seth both run.
Yeah.
And you have children.
Mm-hmm.
So is that a challenge to get the runs each of you need in, whether it's a long run, weekend, nights, because, kids do things in life too.
They do.
Yeah. So, is that kind of a challenge for you guys as well, or is it?
It can be. Yeah. I think our kids are getting older now, and it's made it a lot easier. When they were really young, we would have to take shifts. Like, okay, Saturday long run, you get the morning, I'll go when you get back, kind of a thing. Now the kids are older, we can actually leave them. We have like a built-in babysitter, which is nice. And so we can actually get out and run together now. We do, when you're training for a big, like 100-miler, that's a lot of time. Your long runs can be quite long on the weekend. So typically Seth and I will try to not be training for 100 at the same time. So we'll kind of plan out our schedules that way, and just kind of alternate. So we're not both, needing to get out for a long run, or we kind of make it where, okay, you're the priority right now. Like your running is the most important. And if I get mine in, cool. If not, it's okay. Like I'll run, to the soccer game or gymnastics,
I'll run around the field as the kids are practicing. I'll be that parent.
Yeah. But you get your run in.
So with that, do you have, for 2024, do you both have your plans you'd probably have to plan a little bit more than most, right?
Yeah.
So do you have your plans set for 2024?
2024 is fairly set. There is still some wiggle room for a few things, but do you want me to go through my race plan?
That's why I'm here.
Okay. Now I'll put it out here.
You've got to put it out there. This is what happens.
Okay. So I'm starting out. I am going to do the Rufa Malins coming up.
You're doing 24-hour though.
I'm doing the 24-hour.
Jeez, man. Good luck with that.
Depending on the day and the lap of Malins,
I think you're going to get 15 in. So that's 15. My guess.
Wow. I'm going for 12. 15 seems like a lot.
I'll send Seth to motivate you.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe. That would be a lot of motivation. I'm pretty sure that's the record.
Well, that's why I said it.
Okay. So Malins, and then Seth and I are both going to Boston. I think he mentioned that when he was on the podcast. And then
to run the marathon. Not just to watch a game or anything.
I mean, we'll probably go to Mike's and get some cannolis and stuff too. But
so you're both running Boston.
We're both doing Boston, which is cool. And then Seth did get into UTMB, so that's cool.
When did he find out about that?
Did you not know?
No.
He's in.
Gosh, I was going to ask you that. So he is in UTMB.
He's in.
Son of a gun. Are you going over too?
Heck yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Jeez.
So, those are kind of big trips, Boston and over to Chamonix. So,
oh, man.
I'm trying to keep.
So jealous. I told Seth I was coming if he got in, but he didn't tell me. So that just means he doesn't want me to go now.
He totally wants you.
He doesn't, or he would have told me he got in. That's why he didn't tell me.
He posted it on his Instagram.
I don't do that. When did he get in? When did he find out?
Just a few weeks ago.
Oh, so it's been so he definitely doesn't want me going.
No, he wants you going.
All right, so UTMB, what else you got?
So those are big. So I think I'm going to mostly try to just stay pretty local with my races. I'm just on the wait list for the Bear, but I'm pretty high up, so I'm planning on doing the Bear this year.
Okay.
And then I don't know. I'll fill in with just probably some other local things. I haven't decided for sure. I could go back and do Snow Peaks. I've done that one once before. Yeah. I have not tackled the Speed Goat yet.
Oy.
And I have mixed feelings of
no one tackles it. You just
you
do
just
it.
Do it and suffer through.
It doesn't matter how good you do. It's still not very good.
Yeah. But I feel like I should maybe, I don't know. I feel like it's a rite of passage.
It's a rite of passage.
Or something.
I don't even know how you're on the podcast.
It.
You haven't done Speed Goat yet.
Yep, I know.
How that
that's probably why I haven't been on yet. It's because I haven't done Speed Goat.
Well, that sounds like a pretty big year for both of you.
Yeah. It's Seth especially, that's pretty cool to get to do one of the biggest road running and biggest trail races in 1 year. That's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. That's a big year for him.
Yeah, super cool.
That's awesome. Wow, that's pretty impressive. What a good year you both have laid out this year. Just make sure you do a lot of training for the elevation in Boston, Heartbreak Hill. I've just heard about it, so make sure you get your elevation training in for that. So.
I'm hoping the thick air will help us run a little faster, but you never know.
Well, that's great. What a power running couple.
We're
Boston.
Lucky.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Well, we got just a few more things to talk about. We'll cut you loose. So we have an Ask TrailManners segment. So someone asked a question to me.
Okay.
And so I'm going to turn around and ask it to you as well.
Okay.
So you haven't been, I already know my answer. You have to come up with
you
yours.
didn't give me any time to prep.
It's not how we do things here.
Okay.
So I got a email from Andrew Giles from Canada.
Okay.
Long time listener to the show, great guy. He sent and asked TrailManners. He says, who plays Eric in TrailManners the movie?
Oh.
Doesn't have to be a runner. I'm like, well, I'm not a runner really either. So this is easy for me. First of all, the TrailManners the movie just sounds cool.
Yeah.
Right? Like when I read that, I'm like, man, not about me, but like in general, that needs to happen. But without hesitation on the answer, Jack Black.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, Jack Black.
That's
I've had so many people, and I'll take it, whatever. I tell people it's not body shape, especially now. This has been a while.
Yeah.
People used to think, oh man, you remind me of Jack Black. Mannerisms, different things.
Yeah.
But I literally went to a grocery store one time with one of my daughters, my youngest daughter, and the cashier was just like giving me the weirdest looks as we were approaching the register. And I'm thinking, okay, and now I'm getting uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. My daughter was getting uncomfortable because she's staring at me. I'm like, I know, I get up there and she goes, oh my gosh, for a minute I thought you were Jack Black. And I started laughing. My daughter started laughing, and it was pretty funny. But I would have Jack Black. I think he's funny.
Yep.
Seems like a pretty cool dude.
Yeah.
But that's who it'd be.
Yeah, I agree.
So who plays you in a movie about you?
Oh, so I haven't been totally mistaken as someone like that story, but I've had a few people tell me I look like. The most recent one I've gotten is Jana Kramer. So
I don't know her. I'm not an actor person.
I don't know. I've gotten that one. I've gotten
What is she in?
Selma Hayek before.
Okay, I know Selma Hayek.
And then there's another gal. I'm going to mispronounce her name, but it's like Bernice Bejo. She was in A Knight's Tale, and then that silent movie.
Yeah, I remember her from A Knight's Tale.
The Artist. I don't know if you ever saw that movie, but I had two people, they went and saw it one weekend, and then at work, they came the next week and they were like, I saw your movie. And I was like, what? So I don't know.
Who was the first one?
Jana Kramer.
What is she in?
I honestly don't know her very well, but somebody told me a few weeks ago that that's who I looked like. So I'm trying to think what she's in. I can't
I'll have
think
to
of
look
it right
that
now.
up because I don't know the name. I'm poor that way. So anyway, yeah, that's it. Jack Black. He's a fun dude. I wish he'd do more stuff. He cracks me up. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast. You're not off the hook yet.
Okay.
So I'm letting you know we got a lightning round.
Oh, I'm going to try and do better and not pull a Seth.
I love that word. That's what we're using moving forward, and we used it with somebody else that was on the show after that. I said, you can't pull a Seth.
My kids thought that was hilarious.
That's awesome.
They were like, oh, they said pull a Seth. So that was their advice before I came on today.
Don't pull a Seth.
Don't pull a Seth.
Man,
I'm kind of nervous.
He's going down in TrailManners lore.
Yeah, he is.
Okay. I like to start off with kind of easy ones to get people rolling. And these are not pre-selected. Okay. These are just ones I'm finding here. So question 1, what is your pre-race routine? Morning of the race, what's your routine?
Oh, I wake up. I have all my clothes that I just put on ready, make sure I have everything. Usually that's kind of laid out the night before.
Okay.
Bathroom, sunscreen, breakfast. I don't know. That's it.
It's not really
basic.
like a legit routine.
No.
Okay.
Just go through all the things. Squirrel's nut butter. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. When you're 80 years old, what's going to matter most?
Oh, that's a good question.
Don't pull a Seth.
Don't pull a Seth. I think all the love and relationships that I've had with people, that's probably what will matter the most. Yeah.
If you had the opportunity to get a message across to a large group of people, what would that message be?
Oh, that's a good one too.
There's no bad ones in lightning round.
Yeah, these are good thinker questions. I would say just believe in yourself, and just know that you can do more than you think you can.
I love it. Running or racing superstition.
Oh.
Do you have any superstitions?
I'm trying to think of
left shoe on first, tie your right shoe first, anything? Socks?
I don't do anything like that. Sometimes I do. My girls will make like little bracelets and stuff. And so I love when they have recently made me a bracelet, and I'll try and wear that for a race. That helps me just, when I'll glance at it, and that helps me, I think, run better.
Would you rather have a FKT or a CR?
Ooh, I'm going to go like a course record at a race.
Yep. Would you have a course
CR.
record?
I'm going CR.
You want a course record over an FKT?
Yeah.
I like it. What should everybody have on their playlist? One song everybody needs on their playlist.
Oh, Rome by the B-52s.
Ooh, I like it. What song best describes you?
Oh no, I'm going to pull this.
Rome by B-52s.
No, I got to come up with something else. Best describes me. Oh man. I feel like I have one, but I can't think of what it is.
That's the beauty of lightning round.
Oh man, it's going to come to me later. Come back to that one.
If you could pick one person to run on the trail with and pick their brain and talk to, dead or alive, who would it be?
I want to run with the person that does the Ya Boy Scott Jurek account
On Instagram.
Because I want to know who it is. Also, I feel like that'd be a pretty good time because they're hilarious.
That'd be pretty fun, right? Yeah. What can you do now that you weren't capable of about 3 years ago?
Oh. I think I can be a little braver and put myself out there to go do something that I probably wouldn't have done before. Like I guess if I want to do something specific, I've started doing some backcountry skiing, and there's no way I would have done that a few years ago. Yeah.
What have you learned from running?
Oh, I've learned how to just be more confident in myself, and I've learned so much. I've learned how to just be so just grateful for what my body can do, for what others do for me, for the beautiful trails. Like, it teaches me how to be grateful. I'm going to go with grateful.
Grateful.
Yeah.
Well, the next one, this is, how would you describe your future in 3 words?
Ooh. Exciting, litty, fire.
Okay. I like it. All right. What song best describes you? This is your last chance.
No.
10 seconds.
Dang it. Oh, why can I not think of something?
You got one more question after this to end it. Okay. So you got that one.
I don't know. I'm just a girl. I got one.
Got one. Last one.
Okay.
Favorite aid station food?
Oh, quesadillas.
Quesadillas. You
And
love
bacon.
I was going to say just cheese, or we got the bacon. So that knocks it out. So, well, see, that wasn't too bad.
That wasn't too bad.
I don't think you pulled a Seth. It was close.
Whew,
it was
I know.
close.
That was close.
The audience, I'm looking at the audience over here in the corner. We really don't have an audience. And they were giving you the benefit of the doubt.
Okay,
So far as the household goes, your household, you win.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
So a lot of work to do.
Seth and I have some friendly competition going on sometimes.
Do you?
So,
Well, we may get him back on the show if he does anything fun like UTMB in the future. I mean, I don't know if he is or isn't because he hasn't got a hold of me, but if he does, we might have him back on the show to talk about his path to UTMB if he does get in, which I wouldn't know if he does or doesn't because he hasn't let me know.
When he finds out, I'll have him let
me know. Okay,
Yeah.
that sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah.
Really appreciate you taking the time. You did a great. It's just fun to get to know you, some of these other levels, and just great insight into things too. I think that it's always good to hear all these different perspectives because trail running, there's so many pieces to it. I mean, it's not just ultra running, which people think about. I know on the podcast we talk about a lot of things, but in general, trail running is trail running, right? Yep. There's not really a guidebook to it, as many as are out there. I think you do it. Find your why, do your why, and stick to your why.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's the biggest thing. So thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Really appreciate it. And thanks for listening to the podcast. Again, please don't forget to share us with your friends. Go ahead and, give us some ratings and reviews on iTunes and Facebook. Those always help. But yeah, we're so happy that you listened again. We're glad to be back. Again, the TrailManners podcast, episode number 330. I'm your host, Eric Manning, and I'm out. Thank you for listening to the TrailManners podcast. I'd like to thank Heidi Waddoups for joining us today. I also want to encourage everybody to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at TrailManners, or swing by our website at trailmanners.com. There you can check out the donate button or our store page for some cool TrailManners gear. And both donations and purchases sure help the show. And you can always hit me up on the contact page or email me at manners@trailmanners.com. Let me know what you want to see, who you want to hear, or even if you would like to be on the show. Also, don't forget to share us with your friends. And if you could take just a minute to subscribe to the show and leave us a rating or review on iTunes or Facebook, I'd greatly appreciate that. Don't worry, all these links are in the show notes. Until next time, this is Eric Manning, still reminding you, you don't get what you wish for, you get what you work for. Now go get it.